Anyone ever heard the phrase, hate the sin but love the sinner? Country music icon Dolly Parton is giving the saying a new lease of life in her own special way. The singer was recently criticised by the right-wing political cultural outlet The Federalist for being non-verbal on issues that matter to the average American. However, the writer and publisher are now learning that one must never have a weak and non-constructive argument that's easy to debate and refute when going up against the mighty Dolly. Throughout Dolly's career, she has often been criticised for being too white or not taking strong enough stances on certain political and cultural issues of the times. Dolly's universal appeal seems to get to left-wing perspectives a lot, but sometimes the rebukes reach the right wings also. Who wouldn't want to be a part of any action that involved the great Dolly Parton anyway? In an article published on June 6th titled "There's Nothing Loving About Dolly Parton's False Gospel," writer Erica Anderson calls out Dolly Parton on her unwillingness to condemn or rebuke those from the LGBT community. Anderson goes on to say that this is directly in violation of Christian doctrine, and that as a result, Dolly should not be celebrated by people for her Christian faith. Parton equates love with agreement, but the two are not reciprocal. Love doesn't mean we must accept sinfulness as good to avoid hurting someone's feelings, Erica Anderson asserts. But this is not what Dolly has ever said, nor does it describe her stance at all. Dolly has never said she agrees with anyone's behavior or accepts it as good, and this can't be assumed just because she is accepting of all people. His silence cannot also be interpreted as acceptance of homosexuality or any of the behavioral patterns and lifestyle choices that those in the community make. Dolly's universal acceptance of everyone is not tied to not wanting to hurt someone's feelings necessarily, but a philosophical approach she has taken to life specifically inspired by her Christian beliefs and the teachings of Jesus Christ to not judge others. The Federalist article makes an attempt to take scripture and biblical principles and adopt it to suit their own argument. However, in Dolly's own words to Hollywood actress Drew Barrymore, she is quoted to have said, "I'm not a good enough person or a good enough Christian to judge and criticize other people." The article goes on to say that this is Dolly's get out of jail free card, and that she is using it simply as a way of avoiding the question and presenting her personal opinion of homosexuality in the fear of losing fans from that community. The article also condemns Christians as a whole who use the "let him who is without sin cast the first stone" scripture verse to sidestep addressing sin directly. It also called out performers such as Lauren Daigle, who is a Christian singer and is rumoured to have said, "I'm not God," when asked if homosexual behaviour was a sin. But what the writer, and obviously the editor and publisher of the magazine, also don't seem to understand is that this silence on the matter is not an avoidance tactic. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's people and often celebrities' ways of being non-judgmental. It is literally citing scripture as a way to respond to a question, no different than quoting Matthew 7, 1, 6. "Judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?" Perhaps the Federalist article could have dived deeper into the real meaning behind Christ's teachings on acceptance of the sinner and not the sin, and on Dolly Parton's stances specifically. Perhaps another interesting angle would have been how, as a savvy businesswoman, Dolly knows how to avoid controversy and appeal to everyone and leverages her Christian faith in that service. Neither of those are considered biblically wrong. But instead, the article seems to insist that celebrities like Dolly and others must actively call out homosexuals, even though it is in direct disobedience with many of the teachings of Jesus Christ. Otherwise, their actions are not enough, and they should be rebuked as false Christians. This could be considered similar to the insistence that all music artists must bend a knee and say, "Black Lives Matter," that we saw from a few years ago, and that landed Dolly Parton in hot water for not following suit. It is important to note that the Federalist article wasn't an effort to call out a boycott on all things Dolly. Instead, it asks readers to take a cautionary approach on referring or celebrating Dolly as a Christian artist, since her faith is considered shallow. The weak arguments cited in the article also include counter-arguments in favour of Dolly, who refuses to rebuke Donald Trump supporters as well. Dolly's response to this allegation has been that she has many fans out in that group as well, and that she does not want to offend anyone. This again has been misquoted to Dolly politically correctness that is a reflection of her as a bad Christian. But honestly, the biggest question is why any of this even matters, and who exactly cares, especially since it's an argument that boils down almost entirely to semantics. Quite often the political right wing is seen and heard telling entertainer and performers to shut up and do their thing, instead of getting actively involved in politics or sharing their opinions on political matters. Yet, this article is seen as more of a stoking the fire and expecting a reaction from Dolly and engaging her in a war of words regarding her Christian faith. The article is saying she's apparently not Christian enough, even though she is constantly in the public eye confessing her faith and being proud of it at a time when people are abandoning Christianity and formal religion in record numbers. Social media is rampant with comments talking about how conservatives, Christians, right-wingers, MAGA, and even Fox News are coming for Dolly Parton. But this is not the case at all. Most of these folks love Dolly Parton too, and think an article like the one in the Federalist is silly and superfluous. It's unclear if the article even represents the average reader of the Federalist. The only person it represents for sure is the writer, Erica Anderson, who has a right to share that opinion, but also has a right to be universally rebuked by the public for it, which she currently is. The article was also ill-timed with Pride Month bringing more focus and attention on all things that matter to the LGBT communities. While these communities themselves are up in arms over the article, many have also taken to social media to criticize the attempt to politicize an extremely popular and nearly universally beloved music legend. It is also a time in history where journalism is being heavily questioned, and going after a cultural icon like Dolly could mean professional suicide for the Federalist. From now on, people are going to remember it as the publication that went after Dolly Parton, and that is not a good way to be remembered. It is also important to note that the article does not take note of the immense amount of charity work Dolly Parton has done over the decades, and all the other things she has done to prove her value as a human and a Christian. Of course, Dolly Parton isn't perfect either. She says this herself, and specifically cites this as the reason she refuses to pass judgment on others. Jesus broke bread with sinners, and so has Dolly Parton. There are many things people can learn by studying the lives of both of these people, even if they don't consider themselves Christians or Dolly Parton fans. Clearly, writer Erica Anderson hasn't learned from either.